All right, guys, so let's talk about wedge system. So when I'm talking wedges, to me, I always put things into two different categories. There's, to me, the chipping and pitching or finesse wedge zone, which is all shots inside of 30 yards. So to me, any kind of shot inside of 30 yards, regardless of what kind of shot it is a finesse wedge, chip pitch shot, whatever you want to call it. And then wedge zone to me is from 30 yards up until you hit your full pitching wedge. So for me, for example, 30 yards, I hit my full pitching wedge 140. So from 30 yards to 140 is a wedge zone for me. And I've been teaching wedges a long time. I've been around a lot of good players who hit wedges, and I've just found things that have worked. And a lot of people will come and I'll ask them, hey, can you hit a shot 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 on command? And very few people can do it to the standard that I think you should be able to. And so I always have them build in a wedge. To me, if you can play purely by feel, and just feel 30 yards, feel 50, feel 70, and hit it close enough, then you don't have to worry about building in a wedge system. But from my experience, literally maybe zero, maybe one person ever has been able to do that where they could carry the ball as close as I think you should be able to. So to me, we build in a wedge system. Now, what does that mean? When I say wedge system, and then we're gonna talk about just the fundamentals of hitting these shots, I prefer you to hit these shots from 30 up until your full sandwich with one club. So for me, I use my 56-degree sand wedge, and I'll use that one club on every shot from 30 up until I hit this 110 yards. So every shot from 30 to 110, I use one club. I also think to keep things simple, I like to try and swing at one speed. So I know some people teach wedge systems where you swing a little slower or a little faster, harder, depending upon the distance. I don't prefer that. If that works for you, then that's fine. I like to have one speed or one tempo. So the only thing I'm changing is swing length. So I would have a swing for me from 30 yards, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and 110. I have a swing length for each one. One club, one speed, all I'm changing is swing lengths. To me, that's just easier. Some people use a clock system, that's fine. How I teach in the wedge system is I reference where your hands go relative to your body. So I'll just keep using me as an example. Now 30 yards for me is just a feel shot. I don't really have a system on that, I don't have a spot. I start using a spot once I get to 40 yards. So for me from 40 yards, again where my hands go, 40 yards is pocket to pocket, 50 yards is hip hip, 60 yards is just above hip, 70 is rib rib, 80 is chest chest, 90 shoulder shoulder, 100 for me feels like ear ear, and then 110 is a full swing. When I say those spots, if I'm saying 40 is pocket pocket, I feel as though my hands go back to my right pocket, they go through to my left pocket. 50 yards is hip hip. I go back, my hands go to my hip, and then they go follow through to my hip. All of that at one pace. Now, it doesn't matter if they actually go specifically to my hip or to wherever I'm saying. I know when I record them, they don't always go perfectly there. The point is, if I have 50 yards, I can think hip hip and the ball goes 50. So it doesn't matter if you're perfectly on that spot. It's just a spot to think about when you go play. And that's what I like. To me, depending upon the scenario, depending upon the day, if I'm nervous or not, my speed may change. I don't like having to hit a shot softer or harder. If I'm nervous, my adrenaline's rushing, that might be different. I think keep the speed the same and then just adjust the swing length. So I'm going to demonstrate some here, and we're going to kind of go through our system. I have my TrackMan set up. We'll check the carry distances. For wedges from 30 up until your full pitching wedge, an elite level player, my standard would be 3 yards, meaning you should be able to fly the ball within 3 yards of the distance. So if I call out 50 yards, the ball should land between 47 and 53. I'd have an elite level player hit probably 3 in a row to that distance within that 3 yards, and then you're allowed to go to the next one and build your way all the way up through that. So let's talk about the setup pieces anyway with the wedges. So here would be my full swing setup. Full swing, feet are wider, ball sort of in the middle of the stance. This would be normal full swing. My wedge setup would look something like this. So here's my full swing again. It'll be about so. Here's my wedges. So what happened there? Well, most noticeably, my feet went from being wider to closer together. How close together? I get to the point where basically my heels are almost touching. My toes are a little bit wider because I've flared my front foot. It's a personal preference. I probably would recommend that you do that. I also have gotten, we'll see from down the line eventually, I got closer to the ball and I've gripped down compared to normal. One more time, full swing setup, wedges. I also prefer to have the club face slightly open so I could utilize the bounce a little bit more than normal. So let's do that one more time where I'll go my full swing setup, normal distance, normal width. Here's where I'm doing a wedge system. So for the 30-40, notice how much closer I'm getting to the ball. And because I'm getting closer, I grip down on my shaft, and also the shaft gets slightly more vertical. Here, one more time, normal. Here's my wedge system here. Now, this is my 30-40. As I get longer, as the distance gets farther, and I'm going 50, 60, 70, 80, I will gradually widen my feet. I will gradually get slightly farther, and the shaft will gradually lower. I'm not measuring that out where it's perfect. I want that to be mostly a feel thing. The point is just when you're doing the shorter distances, you should be this close with your feet and the shaft. And I do that same thing for chipping. So by the way, if you're watching this and your chipping doesn't feel like that, where your feet are that close and you're close to the ball, I'd change it in that area inside 32. So that's the point with the distance away. I'd rather you be closer than farther away. I'd rather the shaft be more up than more down, is the point from down the line. And the only other in-swing piece that I want you to be aware of from down the line that I see a lot, the thing you can't get away with your wedges is getting too far inside too early. Because we're doing a wedge swing and it's not a full swing, you don't have as much time to make up for errors. So it's important with these swings that you get on plane, if you will, or that it's neutral enough. So if you were to kind of think of the shaft line at address with a wedge, if someone gets inside of here, I see them oftentimes they'll come too far inside during the downswing and they have contact issues. If you're not hitting your wedge shots crisp after the setup pieces, the first thing to look at is, am I on plane going back, or more specifically, is my club head even with or outside my hands during the backswing plane? That is essential. That to me is non-negotiable. If someone's too far inside, I'm changing that right off the bat, unless they can get away with it all the time, which usually can't. So club head outside the hands, more outside with the wedges. Not way outside in the cross, but you want it outside your hands with the wedges. So that's the main stuff from down the line. Then a lot of people ask questions about hinge rates. So if I'm hitting these shots, hey, do I hinge a lot? Do I not hinge at all? Do I go somewhere in the middle? That to me is a personal preference thing. There's different hinge rates that we'll talk about for trajectory, but I would say you have a normal amount of hinging when you go back. I wouldn't go fully unhinged. I wouldn't be trying to add a ton of hinge. I would have a gradual from 0 to however much you want as you go. There's not a perfect ratio for the hinge amounts. So I'm gonna go through and hit my shots here from down the line, and then we'll talk trajectories. So I'm gonna go ahead here and do a 30-yard shot. Feet are closer. Ball's still basically in the middle of my heels, face is slightly open. Here's my 30. Again, my 30 is basically just feel. That one probably was a little short, flew about 25. I'll do that one more time. Actually flew 24, not my best. Okay, there's a 30, pretty good right on it. So this would be my stock wedge shot. Medium trajectory, nothing fancy, just a stock swing when I go through, and those would be the setup fundamentals here. So I'm going to go through and we'll do a, we'll try a 40. So for 40 now for me, I'm going pocket to pocket, keeping my tempo neutral. And there's my 40, and that was about a yard short. So that carry distance was, yep, 38.9. And then we'll go 50. 50 is going to be about hip, hip. A little long. A little rusty. Let's try that one more time. That one was 54, so that's outside of my 3 yards. We'll go 50 again. And these again are all, to me, just stock shots when I go. Now what you'll notice is as I go down the line and I go farther, I like to build in a system on 10 yards, like I said. What's gonna change with my setup is when I'm at 30, I'm very close. 40, I'm slightly farther with my feet. 50, I'm slightly farther. 60, 70. So my feet are changing width, getting slightly farther apart as I hit the ball farther. The ball's still staying basically in the same spot. Okay, it's basically still middle of my stance. That was 48.7, so that was good. Here's my 60, so feet will be slightly farther. So that feels just above hip, and that was good. So it should be 60-ish, 61, and then 70 for me is a rib to rib. So we'll go that, feet are a little bit farther. That felt good too. Okay. And that was 70.2, getting good at this. And then 80 will be like a chest to chest feel for me. Notice my feet got a little bit farther, starting to get more like a full swing setup here. Ball's going a little bit higher as I start swinging a little bit longer. I'm still feeling as though my tempo is staying the same. I'm not trying to hit any of these harder, just changing swing length. That was 81.1. So 90 for me is gonna be basically shoulder to shoulder. So more like a full swing there too. That also was pretty good. Good wedge day for me. That was 88.3. And then 100 for me starts getting into more of a full swing. Like that 90-yard shoulder to shoulder, that's like a 3/4 swing length. Now 100 for me is just above shoulder, just above shoulder. I feel like it's kind of neck. This would be about just shy of full for me. And that was 100. Slight pull, but the distance should be good. And that was 104, so it was a little bit long, but I'll go through, and then the 110 is my full swing. So that feels like I'm making about a full length swing. My tempo might get slightly quicker than normal, but I'm still trying to keep them about the same. Hit that well. That should be my 110. Now I can hit my wedge from here up to about like 120 if I go super hard at it, but I'm trying to hit that, like that was 108. I try and keep that as neutral as I can. And then, like I said, this wedge system, we're going from 30 up until your full pitching wedge. So that only goes 110 for me, my pitching wedge goes 140. So what I'll do is then I'll grab a pitching wedge, and I have pitching wedge swing lengths that go 120, 130, and 140. So for me, my pitching wedge here, I'm gonna grab one here, hang tight. My pitching wedge swing, if with 140, for me, I hit my pitching wedge 120 yards when I go chest to chest. So I still keep the same theme here. Okay, I go chest to chest. I don't change the speed at all. I might grip down about an inch. Nothing else changes. This is now into more of a full swing setup. Ball still in the middle. I'm gonna go chest to chest, and this is gonna go 120, which is 20 yards off my normal. Struck that well. Slightly left, but should be, I'm not showing you the TrackMan number, so you gotta believe that I'm not lying to you. Okay, that was 121.4. So now 130, same thing, don't change the speed. I go shoulder to shoulder. I just increase the swing length. Still choking down a little bit. 130, shoulder to shoulder. That was a little pull again, a little pulley today, but distance should be good. Let's see. That one was 131.6, and then my full is 140, which is just a stock full swing, not adding speed or anything, is my 140. That was more on line. And same with my pitch wedge. If I really like swing hard and go at it, I can hit it 150, but no need for that. So that is, let's see what that one was. Yeah, so 139. That's the wedge system. It seemed pretty easy. May not be as easy the first time you go through. I practiced that many times. Basically what you do is you start at 30 yards and you test a swing length if you want to build this in. So grab the club you want to use. If you can hit your sand wedge about 100 yards or up to 100, use that one club for all of them. Use just this a stock model. We're going to talk about higher and lower here in a minute. So start at 30 and just guess. Maybe go pocket, pocket, or I'm sorry, start at 40 yards. Go pocket, pocket, hip, hip. Just try something out. Doesn't matter if you actually hit those spots. Once you find your first distance, if it's 40 yards, then you're good. Keep that same tempo and just start increasing the length and find out your spots. Now I have wedge targets here that are lined up conveniently. If you don't have them, you, to me, have two options. One, you got to do this on a course, like late at night when you have time with multiple balls. Or two, take sticks and ask at your course if you can just put sticks out and walk and put them out when no one else is on the range, and then you can monitor it that way. So the other piece with the wedges we have to keep in mind and talk about is trajectory control. Now, for most people watching this, having one baseline shot, one trajectory, one club is good enough from a scoring perspective. When I say most people, I'm talking about unless you're breaking 80, probably, unless you're shooting 70s or better, then one swing is the best philosophy. There's no need to hit the ball higher and lower with your wedges. If you have to go over a bunker, you have a back pin, whatever, doesn't matter. If you're in that score range, to me, 80s or above, you're trying to hit one shot, middles of the greens, every once in a while, maybe trying to attack a pin, but you just want to get on the green and have a good look at that point. Now, if you're beyond that point, you're trying to kind of shoot around par or lower, then to me, from a skill perspective, you have to be able to hit it lower and higher because your birdie percentage needs to be higher. You have to make some birdies on these holes, and we need to get a little bit more aggressive with proximity to the hole with the wedges. So let's go over what we would do to hit the ball lower with these shots and what we would do to hit them higher. We'll start with the lower one. So let's talk setup first. With the normal shot, I said ball middle, feet close, face slightly open. And that's good for a normal trajectory. Now, if I'm going lower, the first thing I'm going to do is move the ball back in my stance. The ball getting moved back in my stance does two things for me. One, it increases the angle of attack, so it makes me hit more down on it, which lowers the launch. And it also lowers the dynamic loft, the loft that I have in my club, which lowers the loft. Those are the two main pieces you need to look at when you want to hit the ball lower. Increase downward angle of attack and decrease the amount of loft you have on the club. So also to decrease the amount of loft, I will shift the handle forward. I will lean the club more towards the target as that also takes loft off the club. I'm probably going to increase a little bit of weight on my left leg, so I'll be 60-ish feeling on my left, 40 on my right, compared to 50-50 for normal. So ball more back, hands more forward, weight more left. Nothing probably most of you haven't heard before. That's the main piece. Now in swing, for me to hit it lower, I'm not going to change a ton of my hinge rates on the backswing for this, but I am going to change my release pattern. So in an effort to keep my dynamic loft lower, I'm going to, during my follow through, exaggerate two things. One, the club head will remain lower than my hands into the follow through, so it'll look like this. And the second part is I'm going to get my hands, increase the distance they are away from my body when I want to hit the lower one. That helps me maintain that dynamic loft, lower launch. So let's do one here. We'll do a 50-yard one just for demonstration purposes. So balls back, handle forward, weight slightly forward, and hands far away with club head low. And this will be a 50-yard low shot here. And there's my low trajectory. So in reality, it's a few feet compared to normal. As a stock low one that I would teach in, we can go higher and low. I'll do that one more time. So ball back, hands forward, weight forward, increasing the distance away in my follow through. This will be a 50-yard low shot. Good, both of those are about low 50. Keep in mind when you do the low trajectory, the amount the ball is going to roll is different. The ball is going to roll more. You have to land the ball shorter relative to your target. So when I'm building in a system, my stock swing, the ball is going to roll no more than 15 feet normally, so 5 yards. So if I'm hitting it crisp, it should be one hop and maybe a little skid out, and that's it. With these lower ones, you might get a little roll. So for 50 yards, maybe you're landing at 45. So factor that into your swing lengths there compared to normal. That's the low shot. Now, I would do those same things from 30 up until probably like 70-ish. And then when I'm getting closer to 100 and you're making fuller swings, that changes a little bit. That's more of a full swing segment. Now, higher shots. Let's go back to normal. Ball middle, feet close, shaft neutral, face slightly open. As I want to go higher, I do the opposite of the low ones. I'm going to have the ball slightly more forward in my stance. Nothing crazy, but slightly more forward. Face will remain open a little bit more than normal. Not a ridiculous amount, but a little bit more than normal. Now, instead of having my shaft forward, I'm going to have my shaft even with the club head or even slightly back. The opposite things apply. If I want to hit the ball high, I want the opposite of the low stuff. I don't want to hit down as much, number one, but mostly I'm going to do this through dynamic loft. I want more loft. I'm going to turn this 56 degree into 60 plus 70 degrees. Some people will ask, why not just grab a lob wedge and have more loft? You could do that, that's fine. I prefer to build it in with just one club. Ball's forward, shaft is neutral, face is open, weight is back to 50-50. Now here I am changing my hinge amounts. I am going to hinge more when I go back for speed purposes. Club face is still open. I'm going to let the club head release more here. I'm going to let the club head pass my hands sooner. And with that, my follow through will look a lot different. Now my hands will be very close to my hip and the club head will be high. That's because my release pattern for this needs to be different for the higher trajectory. Ball forward, face open, shaft is neutral, hinge back, hinge through. I'm going to go 50 yards again with a tighter finish position, and that was about probably 45. So not bad. I'll do one more. Ball forward, face open, shaft neutral, hinging on both sides, finishing much closer with the club head up. Should feel a little flippy if you haven't done this before. Good, and there's about fit. So both those are slightly short for me, but not terrible. So that's how I change trajectory, change the setup pieces, a little bit of in swing. Again, the hinge amounts you use kind of have to, are dependent. You don't have to have a perfect amount of hinge, but change the trajectory through the setup and through your release pattern. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you liked the video, do us a favor, click that like button down below, click the subscribe button, and also leave a comment down below. It really helps us out. The more interaction there is between us, YouTube likes that, sends our videos out to more people, really helps us. If you want to support the channel, you can click that little like button down there. Appreciate that. If you do like these YouTube style videos, we're gonna put a card on the screen for a very similar video like this. If you wanna hop over to Cogorno Golf, check that out, see what it's all about, work with me so I can help improve your golf game. We'll also put that on the screen. Thank you guys for watching.